closing statement, 2 minutes against the motion. Tim Wise.
Couple things. First of all, just to address something I think that was frankly disingenuous that was said by Terence Pell earlier. He said that his organization does not advocate no discrimination laws applying to the private sector. In May of 2004, I got on their website. I was writing my book on affirmative action. It's footnoted in my book. Their statement of principles included the following. The Center for Individual Rights believes in the limited application of civil rights law and the right of private individuals to deal with others as they see fit. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean other than Woolworths gets to say black folks don't sit here and cab companies don't have to give rides. That's what it suggests. That's what it suggests. And you don't have to like that that's what it suggests, but that was what it said. Secondly, everyone up here on that side has said that affirmative action was legitimate in the old days because of the existence of persistent racial discrimination. They've all acknowledged it, which means we're not debating a principle here tonight of colorblindness in all cases. What we're debating is an issue of facts on the ground. If the facts on the ground say that discrimination is still a significant problem, then by definition, by their own admission, the debate is over and you have to vote for us. That's not a debate trick. That's basically what they're saying. The only side that has presented any information at all tonight, let alone analysis as to the existence of ongoing discrimination, is this side of the aisle, which means all of the things I said at the outset about employment, about contracting, about education, and ongoing white racial preference has been utterly dismissed. If that still exists, their own standard of evaluation says that they lose and that we win. So just make sure you remember that when you punch those little buttons. The bottom line, and I'm going to quote, since I didn't get to read my Reagan quote, I'm going to do this, I promise. If you cut me off, it's the quote. Ronald Reagan, when he was governor of California in 1974, last thing he did as he left office was sign into law the affirmative action programs. And here's what he said. He said, time and experience have shown that laws of anti-discrimination are not enough. Justice demands that each and every citizen consciously adopt a commitment to affirmative action so as to make equal opportunity a reality.
We've run out of time.
Reagan was right in there.
Thank you, Tim Wise, for those closing remarks. Now, as a closing statement, 2 minutes for the motion. It's time to end affirmative action from Joseph Phillips.
If white folks are so racist, if they come out of the womb hating black folks, why on earth would we trust them to run affirmative action programs designed to bolster the education of black students? That's what I heard him say. So what kind of society do we want? I have a little more faith in the American people than I think some folks on the other side do. Because I think that the American people, they've spoken loudly in California, they've spoken loudly in Michigan and Washington, they will speak loudly in Arizona, in Colorado, and other states in the upcoming election, that they are in favor of integrated society. The American people are in favor of equal opportunity. What they want is fairness. I think it's quite a compliment that more and more people are saying, listen, they're taking the words of my mother, and they're saying, listen, there is no monopoly on brain power. Black folks can compete, and we want to give them the opportunity. And I think it's about time.
Thank you, Joseph Phillips, for that closing statement. Now a closing statement against the motion from Khin Mai Aung.
So, in talking about diversity and the benefits of diversity, now, the other side makes it seem like we're saying, well, you know, we want racially diverse classes because if you're black, you have a certain perspective and you're expected to carry the mantle of that experience, and same with if you're Asian or white or so forth. And that's not what we're saying. There has been mountains of evidence about the benefits of a diverse educational environment and of a diverse workplace that was produced. In the University of Michigan cases, this was produced before the court, and I'm sure that Mr. Pell's organization fought that with the best arguments that they had, and the Supreme Court voted in favor of diversity. Also, with regard to the process that educational institutions use to accept students, it's a very flexible, individualized process. The type of admissions plan that was endorsed by the Supreme Court in the University of Michigan case is individualized. There are no quotas. It's not mechanical because Mr. Pell's organization actually won the case at the undergrad institution, which found that the undergrad policy at the time was too mechanical. So it's a very individualized consideration. And the last thing I want to leave you with is it's what we call the causation fallacy. Even without affirmative action, whites' chances of admissions only gets in at our most prestigious, it only rises at our most prestigious institutions by 1 to 3%. According to that Bowen and Box study, the one by the university presidents, it only rose by 1.5% for the average white student. That's because there's a whole lot more white students than minority students that are applying. So even without affirmative action, it's not going to increase a lot of people. It's not going to increase any individual applicants' chances of getting in by a whole lot. So this whole thing about how every white student that has been admitted, or even every Asian student who sometimes believes that that's the case, thinks that I would have gotten in if it wasn't about affirmative action. That's simply not true.
Thank you, Khin Mai Aung, for that closing statement against the motion. And now a closing statement in favor of the motion. It's time to end affirmative action from John McWhorter.
I think that when we're evaluating this debate, a crucial thing to realize is that there's no denial on any of our part that there is inequality in our society. This is the crucial point. Looking at the nation that we're in, looking at the history of the world, looking at the nature of our species, it is logically unclear to me that there ever could be a human society where the playing field was completely level. Now, we can work on things, but it's always going to be imperfect, and it's going to be imperfect enough to matter. You can be committed to social justice while realizing that because society cannot be perfect, what our job is to teach people who didn't come out with as many chips as we would have liked to cope and do the best that they can despite the imperfections of the system. Now, if somebody is down on the bottom, of course, I personally am in favor of there being help, of there being relaxations of standards if necessary. But when this is simply a matter of skin color, I think that we have departed from what the original intentions of these policies were. The issue is not waiting for there to be no inequality or discrimination. The idea is, when do you let it go? Because there's never going to be a society that's completely without it. And in closing, I would like to say that there is evidence pro and con for this, and I don't see on the other side any engagement with the con. There is an understandable sense that their arguments are God's arguments, the only ones worth mattering, and that anybody who has different ideas is funded by sinister people or has a different agenda, etc., etc. It's not true. To be honest, I've studied their stuff. I know the pro. There are other arguments written by cogent people, many of them not conservatives. These people don't see those arguments as worthy of engagement. Their case, therefore, is incomplete. I think you should vote for us.